बोलिए सर्वेश्वर भगवान की, गंगा मैया की, गौ माता की, धरती माता की, भारत माता की, हर हर महादेव।
ओम जय गंगे माता मैया, जय गंगे माता।
जो नर तुमको ध्याता, जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता, मनवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
चंद्र सी ज्योत तुम्हारी, जल निर्मल आता।
ओ मैया जल निर्मल आता, शरण पड़े
जो तेरे,
शरण पड़े जो तेरे, सोनर तर जाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
एक ही बार जो तेरी शरणागति आता।
ओ मैया शरणागति आता,
यम के त्रास मिटाकर,
यम के कष्ट मिटाकर, परम गति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
मंगलकारिणी मैया, तू है सुखदाता।
ओ मैया तो है सुखदाता, तेरी गोद में आकर, तेरी शरण में आकर, मन शांति पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता।
आरती मात तुम्हारी, जो जन नित गाता।
ओ मैया प्रेम सहित गाता, दास वही मुक्ति को पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता, ओम जय गंगे माता, मैया जय गंगे माता। जो नर तुमको ध्याता, जो नर मैया जी को ध्याता, मनवांछित फल पाता। ओम जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता, जय गंगे माता।
त्वमेव माता च पिता त्वमेव, त्वमेव बन्धुश्च सखा त्वमेव, त्वमेव विद्या द्रविणं त्वमेव, त्वमेव सर्वं मम देव देव। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
Please tell me the signs to help one know when they are nearing the end of misery. I have been waiting 7 years to get my job back. There's no way to know. There's no magic ball that we can look into that will say, oh, this is what's going to happen, that's what's going to happen. There are sciences, arts, scientific arts, artful sciences, however we want to think about them, of astrology, these sorts of sciences that give us a glimpse of probabilities. But there's no way to say, oh, your job, okay, you're going to get it at, this job at this time. But interestingly, the question was a 2-sentence question, right? And so the second question was, I've been waiting 7 years to get my job back. The first question was, what are the signs to the end of misery? And interestingly, I'm not actually sure that one connects to the other. Meaning, for a lot of people, if you say to them, what's the most miserable thing in your life, they'll tell you, my job. And so there's certainly no universal rule that getting your job back is going to be the end of misery. I can't tell you how many people I talk to who say, my God, everything is great, but I hate my job, but I can't leave it because I've got to put food on the table or send my kids to school or whatever it may be. But that's the cause of misery. So when you actually think about what's the sign that you're nearing the end of misery, when you stop expecting things that are not in your power, that's the sign of the end of misery. Because as long as we are expecting things that are outside of our power, we'll always be miserable. If you're not miserable now, it means that whatever you expected has happened, and so you're good, you're up. But give it an hour, or a day, or a week, but it definitely won't take longer than that, when inevitably something you were expecting to happen didn't happen. And then you are down. And so the only way to know I'm nearing the end of misery is I'm no longer looking for my happiness in expecting things over which I have no control that are outside of me. The only thing we have any control over is ourselves. And so if for me, what I need not to be miserable, in the case of this question, is I need to have my job back, well, you might never stop being miserable. If that's your criterion, as long as I don't have my job back, I'm going to be miserable. Well, if your boss decides not to give you your job back, you're going to be miserable forever. But that's your choice. There's no universal rule that says thou must be miserable. You've made a decision that says I'm going to be miserable without this job. If you can make a different decision and say, instead of waiting and expecting something I have no control over, the whims of my boss, who knows who decides who gets hired, who gets fired, what the policies are, what the rules are? Does my job even exist anymore? If we can let go of the attachment to something that I have no control over and bring it back to something I do have control over, which is my own reactions, then I can stop being miserable today. Because that's in my power. And so the question is, what is going to make me miserable? Things in my control or things out of my control? If it's out of my control, I will always be miserable. Today it's about the job. Tomorrow it'll be what my spouse did, my husband, my wife, my parents, my children. The weather. Rained on my picnic, I'm miserable. The stock market. I mean, these are the sources of misery generally. Stock market crashed, I'm miserable. I had plans outside, it rained, I'm miserable. Some important loved one in my life, a family member, a friend, did something that wasn't what I wanted. They hurt me, I'm miserable. All of these things are out of our control. And so there is no end to misery. This is why all of the scriptures tell us, you want an end to misery? Stop being attached to those things. This is what our scriptures tell us. And interestingly, if you look at the stories in the scriptures, so for example, you look at the epics, you take the Ramayana, you take the Mahabharata, you take the Bhagavad Puran, you take all of the different stories we have. They're all filled with great trouble and strife. And these are stories of divine incarnations on earth. And it's never a sense of, the more divine you are, the less troubles you have. We're given these incredible examples. Look at the life of Lord Krishna. Look at the life of Lord Ram. If you ever had any illusion that just being more on your spiritual path, just getting the right mantra, just getting the right powers, somehow would make life be what you wanted it to be, that everything that you want will happen from the outer world. Look at these stories. It doesn't get any more divine than Krishna on earth or Ram on earth. Look what they each had to go through. Whatever any of us has to go through pales in comparison. And the stories are so extreme. Battles against your entire family. the war of Mahabharata, that Lord Krishna's right there in the middle as the charioteer. His own life, in his own early childhood, how many times they tried to kill him, how many different ways they tried to kill him, what he went through. Lord Ram being banished to the forest for 14 years, having to send his wife away. I mean, all of the things that we think would make me so happy. If I just could be king, right? Got a little shack, I'd like a bigger house. If I live in a bigger house, then I think, oh, if I only had the mansion. I live in the mansion, I think, oh, if only I had the palace. If only I were king. You think, if only I had this family, if only I had these riches, if only if I had this opportunity. But we're given in the scriptures, I believe actually quite purposely. I believe that actually the divine has given us these stories for very specific reasons, such that we never are under any illusion that spirituality is somehow an inoculation against life happening. And even the difficult parts of life. Death, loss, tragedy, betrayal, horrendous betrayal. So on what level do we think that the same divine universe that deprives Lord Ram of his kingdom is really worried about whether I get my job back? I mean, that really, like, that's the measuring stick we're going to use? The same divine that deprives him of his wife and his children? I'm going to just know the right mantra or do the right puja and suddenly my job's going to come back? Clearly that's not the teaching. Clearly the teaching of these epics, of the troubles that they go through, and then the kathas that we're given, right? I mean, we're given not only the scriptures, but then we're given a culture that says, don't just read them. Spend 7 days, 9 days, a month here. Sri Murlidharji Maharaj is giving a month-long Sri Ram Katha. Why is it so important to listen to these? Well, in addition to the actual divine teachings and the mantras and that come out of their mouths, there's the teaching of just their lives. There's the implicit teaching that says, being divine, forget just being spiritual, but being divine, being God on earth, is not the way to avoid these troubles. In fact, I have created this on purpose to show you these are not the problems. The problem is inside you, in your mind, and in your own reactions. And that is what brings us the misery. So when you pray, or when you do your pujas, or when you chant your mantras, or when you, instead of doing it, oh God, give me my job back, let it be the prayer that says, oh God, give me that power of understanding, of resilience, of maintaining my divine connection myself in the midst of such hardship that Lord Ram had, that Sita Ma had. Give me that. That's the magic. Is not about, oh, fix all my problems, but give me the ability not to lose myself, not to react, not to allow something from outside to make me miserable. If you get your job back, wonderful. If you don't get it back, also wonderful, because what the universe has in store for you is your own awakening. And is it going to happen with this job? Maybe. If so, you'll get the job back. If that job is going to be some kind of an impediment to your path, you're going to lose it. But not out of spite, not to make you miserable, and you just have to sit and wait until you get it back. They weren't sent off into the forest to be miserable. They were sent for a whole karmic reason. I'm not going to go into all of that now, but the point is we know, obviously, whether we look at Ramayana, whether we look at Mahabharata, whether we look at any of these stories, nowhere did anything happen just because someone deserved to be miserable. It's always so that the karmic tapestry can be properly woven with all of its individual threads that interlink and interlock and together create this exquisite, extraordinary tapestry of our lives. And so if you find yourself miserable about something outside of you, especially if it's been 7 years, in the case of this questioner and his job, ask yourself whether there might be a different alternative to misery. Not a different alternative to having lost your job, because you don't have any control over that. That was your boss's decision. But do you have a different alternative to misery? Is there another way to react to this situation? Ask yourself that. And in that, when you open your heart and the doors open to all of the other possibilities, what you'll find is not only are you no longer miserable, but you're going to find another job. And at some point later in your life, you're going to be able to look back and say, aha, now I understand. Thank God all of that happened so that all of this would happen, and therefore that's why I am where I am. And that's what it's about. It's not about getting frozen in a moment and saying, oh God, I've got all these problems. Okay, I'm just going to sit here and be miserable till it ends. It's okay. The universe has given me these clearly for a reason, clearly for my own growth. And the prayer simply becomes, how can I grow? What do I need to learn from this? How do I expand? And that is the only way to know when your misery is going to end, is when you start to see things in that way.